Dr. Coby Schal is a Blanton J. Whitmire Distinguished Professor at North Carolina State University. In his namesake, the Schal Lab at NC State University is committed to developing practical solutions to indoor pest problems. Throughout his career, Dr. Schal has mentored 38 graduate students, 42 postdoctoral researchers, and visiting scientists. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you here. We'll talk about the bad cockroaches, but before we do, I thought I'd introduce the good cockroaches. This slide shows that 99% of the cockroach species that are out there, of the 5,000 species that are out there, are actually beneficial. It's only 1%, about 10 species of cockroaches, that hurt us, that do all these bad things to us. And I thought I'd give you one example of a really beneficial cockroach here in North Carolina in the southeast. The red cockaded woodpecker, an endangered bird species, 50% of its diet is one single species or genus of cockroaches called Parcoblata blata. A few years ago, we published a paper where we identified the sex pheromone, the sex attractant of this cockroach, and this sex pheromone can be used to determine whether the habitat is appropriate for the red cockaded woodpecker. So much about the good cockroaches. Let's move on to the bad cockroaches. The baddest cockroach is the German cockroach, Platella germanica, and that's a cockroach that's essentially gave up its native habitats and is parasitic on humans. It lives with us, it associates only with us, and it doesn't have a natural environment in which it lives. It has very direct effects on our health by carrying and transmitting pathogenic microbes, including antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It's responsible for eliciting allergies and asthma. That's a topic that we'll talk about today. But it also has a lot of psychological distress that it causes in people. And there's all sorts of evidence of cockroach bites, cockroaches getting into orifices of people in their sleep, especially the ear. It's amazing. The medical literature on cockroaches is really quite extensive. And of course, mechanical damage. They cause fires by short-circuiting electrical systems, etc. But as important is their indirect effects. Consumers, people that have a cockroach problem, go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot, buy insecticides, and really contaminate their environment with insecticides, oftentimes ineffective insecticides. And so this cycle continues of the direct effects being very important because the cockroach population is not being controlled. Let's turn to allergens. Cockroaches produce a pretty extensive cocktail of allergens, of proteins, that cause allergies and asthma in humans, especially children. And generally, medical interventions are necessary. There's a landmark paper in 1997 in the New England Journal of Medicine that showed that 17 to 41% of Americans have cockroach allergies. About 40 to 50% of urban children, what used to be called inner city children, with asthma are sensitized. That is, they're allergic to cockroaches. And the symptoms, unlike most seasonal allergens like pollen, because the cockroach is indoors, we live indoors, the symptoms are year-round, and the same times the symptoms that you see with seasonal allergies, including asthma. The list of allergens is very extensive. So unlike with many other insects like house dust mites and others, a single allergen is most prominent. In cockroaches, they produce a very long list of allergens. We're still discovering new allergens that have effects on human health. Many of these allergens are in the digestive system of the cockroach, and as the cockroach defecates in our kitchen, in our bedroom, in our bathroom, it also defecates these allergens that become airborne and they become inhalant allergens. So most of the talks today are food allergens, but in this case, we're talking about aero allergens, inhalant allergens. We're changing this paradigm of cockroaches producing allergens that cause allergies by introducing a very important component. The cockroach gut contains lots of microbes, and as the cockroaches defecate into the environment, we hypothesize that these bacteria and fungi that reside in the cockroach gut are also responsible for allergies and asthma by producing bacterial and fungal toxins, such as endotoxins and glucans, for example. And we've been testing this hypothesis most recently. We just published a paper a couple of weeks ago about this concept. And it's based on the idea that here's the microbiome of the cockroach gut. It looks very similar to our microbiome. That is the bacterial community that lives in our gut. And you can see that the cockroach gut and the cockroach feces are very similar. And those red arrows indicate all the gram-negative bacteria. Gram-negative bacteria are very important because gram-negative bacteria, the outer member of the gram-negative bacteria contain endotoxins. And these endotoxins are very important from a medical perspective, the figure below, because endotoxins are responsible for lung inflammation, airway inflammation, that is. They exacerbate asthma. They have all sorts of effects. So most recently, my lab has been very interested in understanding how what's happening with endotoxins in the environment. The first thing we did was in the lab, we determined that cockroaches indeed defecate a lot of endotoxins, all life stages of the cockroach. We also determined that the endotoxins are incredibly stable in the environment, at least for a month and much longer. We then came up with this idea. Medical interventions are very expensive. What about environmental interventions? If we eliminate the cockroaches, can we affect the endotoxin load in apartments? We went to these apartments in Raleigh. This is a typical apartment infested with cockroaches. This is the kitchen. You see all these live cockroaches behind the refrigerator here. The HVAC system is absolutely loaded with cockroaches, so it's blowing all these allergens into the air. We can control cockroaches very effectively. We've developed techniques for eliminating cockroaches, and this shows very quickly we can eliminate cockroaches. What's most important is by eliminating cockroaches, we also reduce the amount of allergens, in this case, an allergen called BLA-G2, and we also significantly reduce the amount of endotoxin simply by eliminating the cockroaches from these homes. Most importantly, in collaboration with researchers in New Orleans, this is post-Katrina work that we did. We showed that this type of intervention, where we eliminate the cockroaches, results in tremendous health benefits to children that are asthmatic and sensitized to cockroaches. In interventions home, we had significantly fewer cockroaches, of course, but we also had significantly fewer asthma symptoms in children in these homes, a lot fewer emergency room visits. So the grand challenge is develop and validate all sorts of low-cost interventions to eliminate cockroaches and thereby to reduce allergens and reduce endotoxins. But there are many other challenges as well. I'm sort of running out of time, so I won't go through each one of them. But my lab is very much involved in the challenges number 4 and 5, which is to document the whole suite of allergens produced by cockroaches. And we do this through proteomics work, and also to document all the biocontaminants, the bacterial and fungal biocontaminants that are associated with cockroaches. And we're doing this by doing metabolomics, by looking at the metabolites produced by these associates of cockroaches. So thank you very much. I want to make sure that I acknowledge the NIH, the NIAHS, and other funders of my lab. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I think we have time for one question. So I'll save mine if there's one burning. You got to ask one last time. New person, unless there isn't one. Okay, there we go.
Well, the recording does.
The study that was part of New Orleans, was that controlling for economic diversity, or is that also potentially related to who might have cockroaches having emergency response?
That's a very good question. all of our work with cockroaches is being done in low-income homes. It's impossible to find affluent homes, middle-income homes with these types of cockroach infestations. And to do this work properly, we really need a large infestation in order to look at the effects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you do have a question for him, you'll stick around afterwards, right? All right.